Imagine this. You just spilled coffee on yourself in front of someone you really wanted to impress.
Does your inner critic immediately jump in to dominate your inner monologue? Ugh, why did I just do that?
Do you find yourself reliving the moment of embarrassment over and over? Do you feel regret or maybe easily getting into a shame spiral?
Do you struggle with forgiving yourself? Or maybe you avoid heavy emotions only to have them bubble up later, like yelling at the cashier at the grocery store, or maybe a little bit of road rage?
Yeah. And do you sometimes feel like you're the only person that feels this way? Are you nodding your head yes right now? Keep listening for a dose of relief.
Guess what? We all feel this way from time to time. It's totally normal. On this podcast, we reveal the messy bits about ourselves without judgment. It's a space where we can reflect, grow, and process our experiences.
And maybe we can even laugh about our actions, attitudes, and behaviors, where we can speak about our past and learn from it.
So, are you longing for a life with less worry and more joy? Let's get started. Hey there, dear listener. Welcome to another episode of Let's Relieve Regret. My name is Victoria Mir-Burcia, and I'm joined
by? I mean, I do Jones for your advice from time to time. I'm Shadoe listener. We've been having quite some giggles over here today, and hopefully that extends into this episode.
How are you doing today, Shadoe?
Good. On our latest episode, and I even when I brought it up, I was like, oh, I don't know if this is true or if I just like took the bait about the trees being injected with adrenaline. And it turns out that it was not true at all. But I stand by the idea that you shouldn't try to bloom year round. You should take a hibernation period. Other things do that, even like, even if this like study is fake, which not even if it is fake, the study is fake. But I think the point still stands that, we should try to take like hibernation periods, and then that allows us to bloom even brighter. And to put pressure on ourselves to bloom year round is too much pressure.
Yeah, I like the message of it. Where did you see it?
I'm assuming just scrolling, probably on Threads or something, and it was probably just like an image. It was probably like one of those carousels that you swipe through.
So I Googled it after you mentioned it in our last episode, and it came up on TikTok for me.
Okay.
So this is like public service announcement too, right?
Yeah.
It was like a voiceover that people kept reusing. That's how I saw it. And I don't know if it was like a clip from a movie, and I was really trying to figure out where it came from.
Right.
And I couldn't. It was super believable, right?
Oh, yeah.
The clip was like they injected trees with adrenaline and then they bloomed all year, but then they ended up dying anyways.
Mm-hmm.
And but I couldn't find anything.
Right.
I did a deep dive and I couldn't find anything. So I think I mean we could get into a lengthy discussion about this, I'm sure, but we won't. But it's the dangers of getting your news from social media, maybe, and the dangers of, I don't know, taking things with a grain of salt. Or, yeah. I mean, it's a great idea. And I stand with you. The message is the same because there's so many things we can learn from trees regardless. But yeah, you and I aren't perfect.
Oh, absolutely not.
And we shouldn't be perfect. And that's what we're showing on this podcast.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we will correct if we ever do give, what do we call it? Misinformation.
I don't
know what to call it. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I should have looked into this more before I told you about it. I even said that when I was sharing it with you. So like it felt true. It felt good. And I think this just comes back to this idea that if it feels too good to be true, it probably is.
Awareness, I guess. Or take a moment to, I don't know, breathe and be asked. Oh, here it is. I got it.
All right.
Ask curious questions.
Oh, ACQ. ACQ from Victoria.
Ask curious questions, right? About everything in life. Ask curious questions. It doesn't mean that you're debating. It doesn't mean that you're being defensive. Ask curious questions.
Yeah.
right? And with the intent or purpose or pursuit of trying to find the truth, or trying to find the
Mm-hmm.
truth for you, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really lovely. How about you? How are you feeling?
Pretty good today. I had a magical afternoon.
Ooh.
I'm going to give myself 9.5.
Whoa.
I'm hesitant to give a 10, but there were like moments that were 10.
Okay,
So
nice.
I went for my afternoon walk, as I often do. And, the chill starting in the air, but it was full sun and bright. And
Mm-hmm.
And then I wore my bathing suit under my clothes today, under a sweatshirt. And
Yeah,
I was like, maybe I'll jump in today. I don't know. We'll see. Cause I haven't jumped in the lake in about 10 days. It's, that transition time when it actually is
yeah,
getting cold. It was only like 14 degrees today, Celsius.
right.
Yeah. At the end of my walk, I went down to there's this little kind of private beach in front of this park, in front of my building. I went down there and there's one other guy on the beach and he's just in full meditation mode, like,
Hmm.
like cross legs, hand on the knees,
Right.
pointer finger and thumb touching, right? I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, great. And I'd been listening to music the whole time. I took my speakers off and I was like, oh, the
Hmm.
water was like perfectly clear, and like the
Nice.
gentlest lapping of the water, like no waves, the gentlest lapping of the water, and the sun was sparkling on the water. I, did a little bit of breathing. I always do some deep breathing before I go in if I'm doing a polar plunge. I
Mm-hmm.
went in and I came out, and then I lied in the sun, and it was beautiful, and it really decompressed my body and spirit and soul. And then I start walking through the park to get back to my building, and there's somebody else sitting on the hill overlooking the water in full
Oh,
meditation mode, crossed legs. And I'm like, this is a magic moment, right? Like
yeah.
I was like, and there's nobody else in the park, two people meditating and me doing my like polar plunge with
Mm-hmm.
breathing. That's like a meditation for me. And I'm like, everyone is just like in this moment right now, connected and grounded. And then I walk back up and I through my like apartment complex. It's kind of like a square in the middle, and there's community gardens and things. And two red raspberries on my raspberry bush.
Whoa.
I know today is October 12th, everybody, by the way. And I ate two red raspberries that I picked right off my raspberry bush. I was just
Great.
like, all right, okay. I'm into it. I'm into fall. I tell myself this every year, get sad when the summer's
Mm-hmm.
over. But
Mm-hmm.
there's so much in fall before we get to snow. There's so many warm, sunny days.
Absolutely.
You wear a big sweater or a scarf, or like, there's no reason to disconnect from nature this time of year. There's a reason
Mm-hmm.
to continue to connect to nature so that you can still maintain the habit, and then you can connect to nature during the winter months too.
Mm-hmm.
So, just one of those moments where you feel like everything slows down and you're able to look around and connect. Do you ever have those moments, or do I sound like
No, actually, I mean, I don't want to like take away from you, but this transitions into my cause for applause really nicely.
Oh,
So,
let's hear it.
yeah, so today I took Gertie for a very long walk because I had the time to do it. And same thing, like I put her in her little like denim vest, I wore a big sweater, and we were down at the waterfront, not, in anywhere that you can swim at the waterfront, but around the Porter Airport and stuff. And the water was just glistening. Like there was just like such beautiful natural like sparkles coming off the water with the
Mm-hmm.
sun and everything else. And then a lot of like the trees that haven't lost their leaves yet. Like there's this weeping willow in the music garden that like this is the time of year you want to see it. Like this is when it's just in its full bloom, so peaceful, so beautiful. So yeah, no, I actually completely like feel you on this. And yeah, my cause for applause is that I took Gertie on a really long walk and it felt very rejuvenating when I got back.
Yeah. What color's the willow tree?
Like green.
Oh, it's still green.
It's still green, but it's just full and blooming and like doing that
Mm,
wispy thing that like and like
mm-hmm.
because it wasn't like it was colder today, but it wasn't windy. So, but it was still like, just kind of like drifting.
Yeah, maybe it's just a magical day. I'm
Maybe.
I'm I'm into tuning into the universe today. So I
Mhm.
think it's great that we're recording today. My
Mhm.
pause
Oh,
for
yeah.
applause and my check-in were the same.
Oh, okay, great.
Yeah, that like I had that beautiful day, and that I, continued my like plunging into the lake. My goal was to
Good.
go at least once a month for 2023, and
Yep.
October's in. I've gone a couple times in October, but
Nice.
once it gets cold, you got to kind of do it to remind
Yeah.
yourself that it's still good. And um, all I have left is November and December, so I will report back. Oh,
Nice.
actually, no, I have another cause for applause. I wanted to report back on something too. Sleep. So I
Okay.
think it was 2 or 3 episodes ago I talked about wanting to sleep more.
Yes.
Never underestimate the power of water, sleep, and sunshine, everybody.
Okay.
Oh my goodness. So my goal, if you remember, is I wanted to get 8 to 10 hours of sleep a night. Then I
Mm-hmm.
changed my goal to 8 to 10 hours of sleep in a 24-hour cycle
Okay.
because I have to get up at 4:50 in the morning for
Yeah.
rowing right now. And so, and I'm a big advocate of naps. We've talked
Right.
about this before. I think naps are important. There's been studies around naps. It's actually not true, or for most people, it's not true that if you nap, you can't fall asleep at night. Like your body tells you when you need to rest and regenerate, and you should listen to your
Mm-hmm.
body. So I've been doing like 6 hours a night, 6 to 7 hours a night, and then like a 1 or 2 hour nap during the day. Now I own my own business, so I can do that. I know people
Mm-hmm.
are like, how do you have time to do that? But design my life intentionally and purposefully.
Nice.
I feel a lot better.
Good.
I mean, I knew I would. I've read the studies. Like I've listened to athletes talk about it too.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not advocating that this is the reason why. Caveat before I say this, but I think it's part of the reason why. So I don't weigh myself, right?
Right.
I weigh myself maybe once every 3 or 4 months. And I haven't weighed myself since, I don't know, February or March.
Right.
It's now October. I weighed myself and I've lost 14 pounds.
Whoa.
I think it's a trickle effect. I'm not saying it's because of the sleep, but I think part of it is.
Mm.
Part of it's that. And then I'm well rested. And then I haven't consciously done anything. And again, I'm not saying this is like a magic pill or anything,
Of
everybody. So
course.
I think it's just made me more well rested, made my brain healthier, made my body healthier, and allowed me to make healthier choices subconsciously and
Mm-hmm.
consciously.
Right.
So
Well,
that's my update on the sleep experiment, everybody. And I'm going to continue because
great.
I feel better. And if I can continue that through the winter, because winter is the most difficult time of year for me, I just want
Mm-hmm.
to set myself up for success now. So
Yeah.
that's my report back on the sleep experiment.
Great. I think even when you talked about the wanting to do the experiment, one of the variables or like things you wanted out of it was the idea that like if you're getting enough sleep, you won't be as attracted to the things that give you the fast energy.
Yeah.
So it sounds like that did work out. So cool.
Yeah. So I think I basically went from probably 6 hours of sleep in a 24-hour period to 8. So I just added on 2 more hours of sleep in some way. And yeah, it's been great.
Oh, I'm
So
so happy
I'm
to
gonna
hear
say
that.
it again. Never underestimate the power of sleep, sunshine, and water.
We're all just complicated house plants, aren't we?
Yeah, exactly. That's
Yeah.
exactly it. Or
Yeah.
else it's complicated house plans.
I was just going to add like a little hack that I did find out about, and I did test it before I'm telling the audience about it. Um, there, just because you said 14 degrees, it's 14 degrees today, and that like made me remember that if you ever want to use the degree symbol in text, it's actually very easy.
Oh, I need to know this.
I know. You just have to hold down the zero. If you hold down if you like long press the zero, two little options come up, and one of them's the degree symbol.
Is this on
And
your computer or your
no, on
phone?
your phone.
No way.
Yeah. And I was very excited by it. I was like, oh, wow, that actually, because I'm always like looking through for it, or I write it out and hope that like the autocorrect comes up. But yeah, this is my little life hack of the week is that you can put in the degree symbol by holding down zero.
Okay, pause for a sec.
Yeah.
This is like a perfect example that shows that you and I, as entrepreneurs, have chosen the right jobs for us that we're passionate about.
Okay.
You are a virtual assistant for people with neurodivergencies, right?
Yeah.
And so you get really excited when you figured out how to use something. I am like, oh, sleep, and I'm a wellness
Yeah.
coach, right? Like it's like this perfect, like real life example of us being passionate about the things that we do.
Mm-hmm.
So great.
Yeah, absolutely.
Who wants to go first? Rock, paper, scissors?
Sure. I mean, I don't mind going first if you'd rather me go first, but
Sure.
okay, great.
You go first.
All right.
Let's do it.
Yeah, because mine's gonna be pretty short today because I don't really need to let this one go because I've already kind of done the work around it, but it's still important for me to kind of like identify this within myself. So I will say I have an experience I need to let go of in order to move forward. I regret mistaking predictability for boredom. So, what I mean by that is if I were to look at my upcoming calendar and it was the same week after week after week, I would get kind of like upset's not the right word. I would get kind of like annoyed and I would purposely cause chaos. I would pick fights. I would do all these little things to make my life more exciting. But recently I've fallen into more of like a nice pattern with my partner, with like my business, with like seeing people, and it's actually really nice. And I know that my brain thrives on chaos, so I'm always going to want to create chaos. And so, like, this is just one of those things where I'm becoming more aware of it. Like, I want to create chaos because that makes me feel good when I solve for the chaos. But I can also just feel good without the chaos, and that's new for me. That's a totally new experience for me. So I'm growing. I can feel myself growing. It's again, it's almost as basic as what you were talking about with like the water, sunshine, and rest. Like having routine is nice, I guess. So I will end it there because it's just one of these things that I once I identified it, it was something that I kind of regret always falling into. And the other thing is now when chaos does come up, like it's still kind of exciting for me. It's still kind of nice to like jump in there and like, solve for the chaos. But it's coming from it like the foundation's better, if that makes sense. Like the foundation is better for me to like thrive in that chaos and then move on versus being so completely depleted after that chaotic moment that then chaos builds on the chaos. So yeah, so I am growing. I'm relieved. I'm capable of balancing the chaos with the predictability, and I'm worthy of both an exciting life and a little bit of a boring one.
Amazing. Do you want feedback or do you just want to be
Sure.
heard? Okay, my feedback's short
Yeah.
because I think you said everything so beautifully. You're acknowledging that it's part of growing. You're
Right.
acknowledging that it's a self-awareness. You're acknowledging a pattern within yourself. I literally wrote right before you said
Hmm.
it, seeing patterns in ourselves is self-awareness,
Okay.
right?
Interesting.
That's like the
Yeah.
amazing thing about self-awareness. When we start to see patterns in ourselves, then we're recognizing the computer that is our subconscious brain,
Hmm.
what's driving us. And then when we recognize it, I've said this before, the subconscious brain is in charge 95% of the time, no matter how
Right.
much we want to admit it or not. But part of reprogramming or changing it is just awareness. It's just knowledge of yourself,
Hmm.
right? Or you can call it knowledge of yourself, you can call it self-awareness. But once
Hmm.
you're aware of it, every time it happens, the subconscious brain's also peaked, and then the conscious brain is peaked, and you're like, I'm not going to do that. I'm
Right.
gonna make a choice not to do that, right?
Yeah.
So here's my curious questions is I have two. One is, are you creating chaos for yourself or others?
That's a good question. I think I would seek chaos from others in order to give myself an ego boost, because solving for their chaos would make me feel good.
So you find someone that has chaos in their life already and kind of
Yeah,
inject yourself into
I
it?
think so. And if I don't have anything like that, then other things like I do notice in my apartment, like I let like laundry pile up or, all these
Hmm.
things so that I can get like really like that. We've talked about this, I think, 2 seasons ago, that
Hmm.
Tasmanian devil approach, where if I let things just descend into utter absolute mess, it feels really good to clean up like a big mess than it does to clean up a little mess every day. Cleaning up a little mess every day is extremely boring, and it was something I would really avoid. So I guess in that way, I was creating chaos for others because other people would have to deal with that. I don't know. Like even right now, like I'm excited to take out my recycling after this call. And
So
like,
it's kind
like,
of both,
yeah.
right? Like it's kind of like you'll inject yourself in other people's chaos or you'll
Mhm.
just create it for yourself,
Yeah.
which could also be called like in some way, you can totally disagree with me here, like a little bit of self-sabotage, maybe. Like I'm not
Oh,
gonna do
yeah, it's
the
not
laundry
even
and
just
you're
a
not
little.
gonna, okay.
Oh, it's absolutely because like again, like yeah, that's yeah, I'm not even no, I don't have anything else to add there. I can see that my brain's trying to like do acrobatic things to
To
answer your
justify the
question.
chaos, to justify
Yeah,
the chaos
yeah,
so
yeah,
that you can
yeah,
continue to do the chaos.
yeah.
Yeah, okay, great. So there's
So
another amazing
yeah.
moment of self-awareness that
Hmm.
you're acknowledging that your brain is resisting you wanting to change the chaos.
Yeah.
Like I oh my gosh, we've talked about this before. We need to make them magic moments thing because this is a
Hmm.
magic moment right now. Like you're
Right.
literally just like self-awareness processing in real time. It's amazing,
Hmm.
right? Just
Hmm.
acknowledging the thought and saying, I'm resisting this, but we resist things that we actually need to change or want to change, but the brain is
Hmm.
lazy and it doesn't want us to change them. And
Yeah.
then we push through the resistance and we can change our habits, behavior
Hmm.
habits, emotional habits, physical habits, whatever they are, right?
Hmm.
So, okay, so here's my second question
Okay.
around predictability or boredom.
Mm.
Are you labeling behaviors or scenarios as boring or predictable? Is it like judging age?
What do you
So,
mean?
yeah. So is it like I don't want to okay, so I'll relate it to myself kind of
Okay.
almost. Like, why don't I go out and do fun things as much as I used to?
Okay.
I must be getting old. But then
Hmm.
the reality is if I actually stop and think, I'm like, actually, I just want to stay in on a Friday night and watch a movie with Christian.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
shouldn't judge myself on that. And that's not boring. That's what I want to do.
Yeah. 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 I think that's actually even when it's so funny that we bring up Friday night. I think it was exactly a Friday night a couple weeks ago where I was walking Gertie after work, but before, hanging out with Ben. And someone was like, oh, so like, what are you up to tonight? And I was just like, the same thing I do every night. Like, what are you talking
Mhm.
about? Like, I'm gonna go home and have some dinner and hang out with my husband and like make each other laugh. Like I don't, you know, like I don't need to go out and make it like a big thing because I do have such a nice thing at home already. Which I'm sorry, listeners, if that's like weird to hear.
No, it's
But
great to
like,
hear. So I think sometimes, I guess, we got to find another word for it. I don't know what the word is, but comfortable doesn't mean you're coasting.
right.
Sometimes comfortable does mean you're
Yeah.
coasting. So
Yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah.
like there needs to be a thing of like confidently comfortable. Like this is something I'm confidently comfortable. I don't know. But you know what I mean?
Mm.
It's like there's a peace in like peace, PEACE. Like there's a peace and an ease in being confident that you're doing what you want to do without the pressure of
Hmm.
having to be, I don't know, cool or active or fun or whatever it is all the time. If
Hmm.
I'm content, is it content? Maybe the words I'm looking for is content.
Maybe. Yeah. I think I've always had a lot of pressure on myself to be cool and wanting all that kind of, yeah, I think again, I wanted to show up to other events with like a story prepared. And this is another regret we've talked about where like
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to be able to tell people like, oh yeah, this really exciting thing happened. And, that would make me kind of like the life of the party. But lately I just, like I do have lots of things that will just naturally come to the top. Like even today, what things we've been talking about, none of this is planned. I'm just thinking, like, you remind me of something and I think of something, and that stuff's just naturally fun. So I don't need to have crazy, interesting stories ready at the helm just to feel like I'm worthy of being in someone's home?
Yes. We did talk about this. Was it last
Yeah.
time? Like, you are worthy just by being a human being on the face of the planet. You don't
Yeah.
have to have a crazy fun
Mm-hmm.
story to be worthy of someone loving you, wanting to be your friend, wanting to spend time with
Mm-hmm.
you. Yeah.
Yeah, and if anything, it actually creates a barrier, like to like want like of course if someone asks you to share a story, then you can have some ready. But like in general, most people want to be heard. And like that's been a shift for me to like kind of fall more into that role and kind of see like what is said and what is unsaid and those kinds of things.
I have one more curious question, just one.
Okay.
So we've been recording this podcast for almost a year,
Mm-hmm.
and I feel like we almost took like 8 or 9 months before we started recording of a lot of brainstorming together and figuring
Yeah.
out what we wanted to do and to emulate and display and lead by example
Mm-hmm.
and all those sorts of things. But we kind of have our process down now, and
Mm-hmm.
starting in a couple weeks we have a lot of guests lined up, so
Yeah, I'm
we're now
excited.
starting to share the process.
Mm-hmm.
But do you think, because the first season we said we decided to do an experiment to see how
Mm-hmm.
this process of check in, cause for applause, tell the story, do you want feedback,
Mm-hmm.
accepting the feedback, and doing that kind of on a weekly basis as peer mentorship, I
Mm-hmm.
guess.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that that's affected it
Oh,
in the
absolutely.
experiment, that you're like, I can go to someone's house and I don't need to prepare something and I can just listen, or I can, because we are forming it as a habit within ourselves by
Mm-hmm.
doing this podcast, which was part of the experiment. Like, it really was, we want to make the podcast to be of service to the world, but we are also doing it as a personal experiment within ourselves between
Mm-hmm.
two supportive friends.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
I
Like,
don't have anything
it's
to
like,
add. Yes is a sentence, Victoria.
this is a sentence. That's right. It's like this process, or we could call it a ritual, or we could call it structure now, because we do
Mm-hmm.
it on a regular basis with each other. We just happen to be recording it. But
Mm-hmm.
and we've been doing it for almost a year.
Yep.
When you do things consistent, persistent, repetitive, that retrains the brain to make new behavioral habits, but also to the subconscious brain to easily and in the background dictate your actions, attitudes, and behaviors without you even knowing it. And we've been
Mm-hmm.
consistent, persistent, and repetitive about it. And this change has happened in you. How cool is that?
It's very cool.
Yeah.
So thank
Cool.
you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I think we should get to your share for
Yeah.
today.
Thank you for sharing. That was really cool. Yeah, that was a
Thanks.
good share. I liked it. Here is my share today, everybody. I'm going to call it a something. I have a something or a habit. I have a habit that I want to work on. I'm going to say work on letting go of, or work on changing in order to move forward. And that is that I'm constantly late for everything. So I recently learned this term, time blindness. And for me, I had an aha moment. I was like, yep, that's what I do. I think I can do something in 20 minutes when really it takes an hour. This often happens when I'm leaving the house. I think I can put my makeup on in 2 minutes and it takes me 10 minutes. And then Christian's standing at the door and he was like annoyed. So we're going somewhere. I want to apologize to you, Shadoe, too, because every time we go to record, I'm texting Shadoe about 20 minutes or half an hour before we're recording. I'm like, I'm just finishing up my walk. I'm going to be 5 minutes late. And I appreciate you so much, Shadoe, because you're so graceful about it and you don't get annoyed with me about it. And so I appreciate that, but I also don't want to take advantage of that. I mean, the consequence of holding on to it is that, I don't know, I might annoy people, or I may rush through things or procrastinate things and then think I can get things done and not get things done. There's quite a few consequences around time management, I think. I'm looking forward to your feedback. So I did everything I could in those moments when I was late for something with the tools that I had at the time, and that's okay. That's who I was then. And I'm wanting to learn and grow and understand the time blindness a bit better. It's only certain things. Some things I'm really great at being on time for. And a lot of time management for me, I'm really great at in terms of I have 20 things I need to do. I'm really good at being like, I'm just going to focus on this one or two and let the other things go and not judge myself. I'm good at the self-talk around it in terms of what's a priority, what's not a priority, that sort of thing. But it's just a general time blindness, I think. So I want to work on that and learn about it more. That's it.
Thank you. I love that. And I also love that you already gave me permission to give feedback, so I don't even have to ask you.
Yes, I would like your feedback.
Yes, excellent. So first of all, I've done the same thing to you, so I feel like there's a mutual understanding there when it comes to lateness. So I don't think that necessarily, I do appreciate the appreciation, but like I also think that's a matter of like being around people who get each other.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like to me, when people get mad over someone being late, like it just that gives me the ick. Like when someone's like, they said seven
Yeah.
o'clock and it's 7:03. And I'm like, oh my
Me
gosh, like
too. Me too.
relax.
One of the things that I use with like my book club friends, for example,
Hmm.
is no pressure. Like I literally
Right.
say no pressure. And maybe I have like a trigger point with it or something, or it gives me the ick. And so I'm really forgiving of other people when they're late. Is
Hmm.
there was like so much pressure of that in the corporate world when I was working in the corporate world,
Maybe
right?
that's,
And
yeah.
usually the phrase that went around it is like people's time are valuable and you're disrespecting them if you're
Yeah.
5 minutes late. And when I was corporate, government, whatever you want to call it,
Hmm.
I subconsciously knew that I was about to burn out. I knew that I was like over functioning and that I was overwhelmed and that I wasn't like mentally well. Like I knew that the last year before I left that job.
Hmm.
And I started doing this thing where I realized this was me becoming aware and conscious of it. Nobody was checking to see if I got to work at 8:30 or 8:45.
Right.
And so I consciously every day sat down and ate breakfast.
Right.
And I said, I'm going to take 5 minutes to eat breakfast. And because my time is also valuable.
Hmm.
So I almost reversed it. And then, like, the other thing was, I remember driving one day and I was driving to a meeting on the 401 and I was frantic that I was going to be late.
Hmm.
And a car cut me off and it scared the shit out of me.
Right.
And I stopped and I remember thinking, me being this frantic is not worth my life. Me
Hmm.
being 15 minutes late for a meeting with my supervisor is not worth my life.
Yeah.
And that's when I made that shift from it's so disrespectful, blah, 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 blah. Sometimes there's other reasons people are late and nothing's more important than the person's life.
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
now it's almost gone too far the other way, maybe. I
Okay.
don't know.
What
Or
like
tell or I'm curious, like your feedback on time blindness and what it is.
Okay, so I've done a lot of separate research on time blindness. So time blindness can kind of take two forms. So one thing is the thing you're talking about with like you think a certain task is going to take X amount of time, but it really takes Y amount of time. So the quickest fix for that is every time, like for like a month, again, it's a nice little experiment you can do for yourself, is time it. The next time you do your makeup, literally time it. Get
Mm-hmm.
20, get like 20 different like sets of information for how long that really did take you. How long does a shower take? How long does sitting on the towel after the shower take? Because for me, that's like
Mm-hmm.
that can go from 10 minutes to 45 minutes. Like it really, you know. And then when you do want to get somewhere, instead of making it like, oh, I've got this, I've got this, I got this, you got to work backwards. You got to work backwards and build in buffers. So if you know, like if you know that before you leave, you want to do these three things, and you can actually look at your numbers and say, okay, I know that blow drying my hair takes 15 minutes. I want to build in a 5 minute buffer. I want to also do this. I want to also do that. So you have to like be really realistic with yourself, build in I would say, a 5 to 10 minute buffer between each step. And then like, but you need to have that data. Like we all have like a perception of how long things take, but the reality is just the reality. And again, not in a judgmental way. Like it's just every time you do your makeup, pull up your phone, hit set time, and then when you're done your makeup, hit end time. Do that the next 20 times you do your makeup, and then you actually know how long that takes. So you can actually build it in as a step as opposed to just, oh, and then I got to do my makeup before I go, because that isn't an actual number. And that, again, predictability is boring. We've talked about that today. And again, the chaos is really fun to be like, well, I guess I'm not going to do eyeliner today. I'm just going to do mascara. And like we start making all these like compromises within ourselves because we can see the clock ticking, right?
I didn't even make the connection between my regret and yours because I am creating chaos for myself.
Yeah. And then like, again, being constantly late for everything, uh, it depends, right? Like before I was diagnosed with ADHD, my husband and I had tickets to something that they were very explicit with. If you were late, you did not get late admission. Like this show
Mm.
starts on the dot. There is no grace period. If you're not here, you don't get let in. And it was so painful to actually deal with that consequence. So, like maybe sometimes it does just take those little kicks of like, oh my gosh, like, and again, I had to lose out. I had to lose out on that experience because I was late. Um, and not very late, like literally 3 minutes late. And
Mm.
I tried to like bargain with the front, like I tried so many things. And then I had a full-blown tantrum in the alleyway outside the venue because I was just so upset that we couldn't go, and like, again, so embarrassing for everybody involved because like I'm screaming, I'm crying, I'm doing all these things. But that was the rule. And if that's so I had to really learn that too. It's not just that like, okay, sometimes you like, are late and there's going to be a consequence for that. So that's part of it. But the other thing that can happen with people with ADHD is the time blindness actually takes a different form where if you're really into what you're doing, you get into workflow,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
if
yeah.
yeah, so you will
Yeah.
ignore any signal to use the bathroom, to get a snack, to get a drink, to go to bed. And then, oh my gosh, it's the next morning and you've been working on this thing that really lights you up inside for 14 hours. And like, no, but no one could pull you out of that. Again, with those kinds of time blindness things, if you have the flexibility in your schedule, I would just go for it. I was just saying, like, if
Yeah, because
like,
that's almost like a superpower, like you can
yeah.
power through. And again, it's interesting when I was over functioning or functioning in my 9 to 5 job,
Hmm.
I would do that. Like
Right.
I would like get a signal that I had to pee, but I'd be really excited about something I was creating
Hmm.
about some program,
Yeah.
or I might have been writing a grant proposal or something. Like 6 hours later, I'd be like, oh my God, I have to get up and go pee. And I
Yeah.
need to stand up from my desk.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I think time blindness is one of those things that like once you're aware of it, it's just like everything in life, it's a skill we can work on. It's not just like one and done. It's not just like, oh, I have time blindness. I can't do these things. There are, and maybe you can't, but there are timers. There's all kinds of like support and tools to help you with those kinds of things. So yeah, so I don't really have advice or anything. My feedback is just that like this is super relatable to a lot of people, and I think a lot of grace both ways can go really far. So like, and not just the grace for the person who should accept that people have time blindness and might be late for stuff, but also like accepting, like as much as I said it gives me the ick when people are really like strict about that stuff, like I know for some people when their friends are late or their friends haven't responded to a text, it actually increases their anxiety, right? So like
Hmm.
that's not very nice to do to our friends either. So I don't know. I don't have an answer. I just think this is something that like as you start working on it, and like you said, self-awareness is a step and you figure out these things, like try to be easier on yourself, because again, like you're not going to solve it by being meaner to yourself about it.
Yeah, I think that's kind of like the process for me today. Like there are some things that I've can't talk today. Certainly, back to when I was going through my burnout like 10 years ago, I certainly learned how to be kind to myself and not judge myself on being
Right.
late. Like I know that I need to eat breakfast and I'm going to do that every day. I know
Yeah.
that I need to like not be like
Yeah.
frantic if I'm driving somewhere, and I need to be present and drive safely.
Mm-hmm.
And so I learned how to forgive myself pretty quickly, because if I didn't, then the judgment spiral would just like take over, and the shame and
Yeah.
those sorts of things. So that process I'm on. But in terms of like actual functionality, in some ways, I love your advice about timing the things that I have time blindness about, like putting
Right.
on the makeup, how long it takes me to get ready, how long it takes me to shower, those sorts of
Mm-hmm.
things. That's great advice. Thank you.
Right.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's a really good tool.
I also think it happens the other way too, where like we can overestimate how long things take and then not do them. So like similarly,
Mm,
coming back to my predictability regret, like I know that emptying and filling back up the dishwasher takes less than 10 minutes each time. And I know
mm-hmm.
that because every time I put on music, I cannot get through more than 2 songs before that task is done. But there are so many times where I'm like, oh, I can't unload the dishwasher. It would just take forever. And
Yeah.
then I just kind of get stuck in like, you know, not necessarily time blindness, but just like, I don't even know what that's called. Just like procrastination or
Yeah.
executive dysfunction or all that kind of stuff. Because like I want to do it. I want to make sure I don't leave the dishes out before I go to bed. So I have to constantly remind myself that like if I put on a 5 minute song, I can probably beat that song before I like, but like by the time I'm done the dishwasher, then I can put on another 5 minute song and that will get me through like filling up the
That,
dishwasher.
that's almost like using music as a time management tool. And I really like that. That's
Okay, cool.
also a great piece of advice.
Yeah. So again, it's not about, I need to fix this terrible thing. It's just about like
I want
some
to
people.
be a bit better at it.
Yeah.
And thank you. This conversation has made me more self-aware. And that's really it, right? Knowledge of
Mm-hmm.
yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Knowledge of yourself is the self-awareness.
Right.
Aha moments, breakthrough moments, realizing, asking yourself questions, being introspective, being curious about yourself, being able to step away and look at yourselves and your behavior patterns for everything, my emotional ones, my financial ones, my social ones, my self-talk, all those
Mm-hmm.
kinds of things. I don't know if it's the first step, but it kind of is the first step in healing or moving forward or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm pretty clear on that. And again, that's how I work with my clients. It's how I work with the classes I run. Is it's just knowledge of how you work. And
Yeah.
then you can use that and you can
Yeah.
move forward. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And then again, if it's things like, it's annoying to have, like, I'm with you that like there are some times where I set up 4 or 5 reminders on my phone and still don't get the thing done.
Mm-hmm.
So it's gonna happen. But like for me, again, the experiment of timing how long each step took was a huge thing for me. And then planning and working backwards and building in buffers. So then it did really make me kind of upset the first time I realized that, like, let's say I wanted to leave the house at 2 p.m. That means I pretty much have to start getting ready at 12:30 or 12:45 at the latest. Because I was convinced that I could get it done in an hour.
Well, here's a curious question. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
we've talked about this. You don't drive a lot in the city.
Mm-hmm.
I think I can get anywhere in the city of Toronto in half an hour
You're funny. Right.
in my car,
Yeah.
and you can't.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But like, I think I can drive anywhere in 30 minutes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like, that's when I got to work on too.
That's funny because like I also like, the thing about not driving in Toronto is like I also only give myself the exact amount of time I would need to get somewhere. But TTC is always going to take longer. But like I don't want to find a place to kill time. I want to kill time in my own space. So
Yeah, I agree with
yeah.
that.
So
I
I
agree with
build it
that
in
too.
off the top. Where I think if you have a car, at least you can like, okay, if you show up 20 minutes early, at least you can just hang out in your car.
Yeah, I don't like being 20 minutes early for things.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
like
I
totally
know.
other. that's a fear or anxiety, or I don't know what that is, but like, I don't like being the first person to arrive.
Oh yeah, no, it's the worst.
Thank you, Shadoe. Like, you actually have given me a lot of really good advice here and things to think about. So
cool.
I was excited to share this one because I knew you'd have some really good input. So
it's very relatable.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And I'm gonna try it. I'm gonna experiment.
Great.
There's no way to segue into the three breaths today.
Not today.
Should we finish off with our three breaths? I mean, here's the segue, maybe. Both of our stories today were really about self-awareness, and a really simple and easy way, everybody, that you can just tap into yourself every day is the three breaths of release and connection that we are doing this season 3, at the end of each episode. So come on to the front of your chair or stand up and put your feet flat on the floor, as long as it's safe for you to do so. Feel yourself connected to the earth. So maybe it's your bum on the seat of a chair, maybe it's your feet flat on the floor. And if you want, you can put your hand on your heart. And I just want you to shrug your shoulders up and down and say, release, release, release. Taking a big breath in, breathing out, shrugging your shoulders, release, release, release. Acknowledging that breath is the foundation of life and of your life. All you need is breath to function as a human being. Taking a big breath in, breathing out, saying to yourself, in this moment right now, I have everything I need because I have my breath. Taking our last breath in, breathing out, this is who I am right now. I've done everything I can do today, and that's okay. Thank you for joining us out there and for supporting us. We appreciate you. I appreciate you, Shadoe, so much. Thank you for sharing today.
I appreciate us. I appreciate both of us. I'm not just going to throw it back to you. I'm going to actually take some of that appreciation today. I appreciate both of us and this process. So, yeah.
She's receiving. Okay, everybody, we will see you, hear you, be with you in the next one. Thanks so much. Okay, bye.
Bye. This episode of Let's Relieve Regret was produced by Shadoe Ball and Victoria Mir-Bercia. We are an independent podcast supported by you, our listeners.
You can become a supporter by donating $3, $5, or even $8 per month at www.letsrelieveregretpodcast.buzzsprout.com and click on the support button. You can find the link in the show notes.
Our goal is to empower as many women as possible to overcome the shame and guilt that accompanies regret.
If this podcast helped you have an aha moment, help us spread the word. It's free for you, and it means the world to us.
Please follow us on Instagram at relieve.regret.
Tell 2 friends.
Or leave a 5-star review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts.
Find all this information and more in the show notes. Okay,
bye.